Greetings, my beautiful lovelies. It's Emmy. How are you? It's great to see you and welcome back to my kitchen. Today's video is sponsored by Native, the makers of deodorants that are aluminum-free, paraben, and cruelty-free. They also happen to be vegan, and they're made with familiar ingredients like shea butter and coconut oil. So my family loves using Native, including my husband. I, of course, have the strange version of the ABCC11 gene, which means I don't produce any body odor, and I have dry earwax. It's a very fascinating reading. I'll put a link down below if you haven't read all about it. Very, very interesting. But I love Native because I have a fresh smelling family, including my husband, who for the longest time struggled with finding a deodorant that didn't cause him to break out in a rash. Native works for him, and it works well even after a long run. So Native now offers their deodorants in a plastic-free version. It's the same formula, same amount, it's just in more sustainable packaging. So Native is a proud partner of 1% for the planet and commits 1% of the plastic-free sales to environmental nonprofits. Charcoal is my husband's favorite. It goes on smoothly, it dries quickly, and doesn't feel at all sticky. It smells fresh and clean without being perfumey. I am super sensitive to scents. Native currently has a coffee house collection, which includes this one, oat milk and latte. Sweetness reminds me of the holidays. Cookies, vanilla. 3 plastic-free deodorants normally go for $39, but if you use my link down below, you can get them for $29, and that's 25% off. So big thanks to Native for sponsoring this video and for their continued support. Today, I'm going to be tackling donuts. I'm going to be making yeasted donuts, which I've always wanted to make, but I've never made them before. They are my favorite style of donut, just simply fried with a glaze on top. You don't need anything else. I don't need any cinnamon. I don't need any sugar crumble. I don't need powdered sugar. That's all I want. A yeasted donut with that beautiful crackly glaze on the outside, warm out of the fryer. So stinking good. It's my favoriteest donut ever. I have tackled donuts before. I've done 2-ingredient donuts, and I'll put a link down below to that video in case you missed it. But I've never ever made yeasted donuts before. Now, when I say yeasted, what do I mean? Well, I mean it includes yeast. They're the fluffy kind of bready donut, as opposed to the old-fashioned donut, which is more cake-like in texture. This is going to be a little bit more bread-like, a little bit chewy, but fluffy and airy, and just describing it is making me hungry. So in New England around this time of year, apple cider donuts are super popular. I made a recipe for those a long time ago. I think I made them in cake pop version, little donut holes. I'll put the link to that one down below. Those donuts are absolutely delicious and hyper-regional. But that is more like an old-fashioned donut, which is more kind of cake-like in texture. And I prefer the kind of Krispy Kreme style of the yeasted donut. So I'm going to be making it today, but I'm going to be attempting to cook them in an air fryer. Several of you have requested this video. Today's recipe is going to be adapted from the King Arthur flour recipe. I love their recipes. Every one of them that I've tried has worked out beautifully. So I'm going to be adapting their recipe for yeasted donuts. I'm going to be cooking some in an air fryer, and just because I'm curious, I'm going to be frying some also, just so I can have that kind of side-by-side comparison, right? Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to need is a stand mixer, but you actually don't need a stand mixer. You can just make these in a bowl and then knead them by hand. But since I have one, my old one that has been refurbished, lovely Rich reached out to me saying that he enjoys fixing these great machines, and he fixed my machine. He tightened up the head, replaced my planetary because it had a cracked pin. Just so great. I'll put a link down below to Rich's blog. He does this as a hobby, but he does such a beautiful job, and I am so grateful. And I didn't want to buy a new machine. I just wanted my old machine fixed. So Rich, thanks so much for making it happen. In the bowl of my stand mixer, I'm going to add my flour, sugar, instant yeast, and salt. And with my mixer fitted with a paddle attachment, I'm just going to mix this up just so everything gets incorporated. I've got some whole milk here. I'm going to add some melted butter, 1 egg, a little bit of vanilla. I'm using vanilla paste here because I happen to have it, but feel free to use vanilla extract. Now we're going to give this a good whiskey. Add my wet ingredients. So pretty quickly it forms a dough. It's very sticky, and I'm going to scrape the sides down, and then I'm going to let this rest for 5 minutes before we knead it again for 6 to 8 minutes using a dough hook until we get it nice and elastic. At this point, the dough will be nice and elastic and smooth, and we'll grease our bowl, place the dough back in there, and then cover it and allow it to proof for an hour and a half up to 2 hours, or until the dough is nice and poofy. Alrighty, my lovelies, I am back. It has been 2 hours since I let my dough rest. I have it sitting in this box over here. This is a proofer. This thing is so great to have if you've got cold winters and it gets kind of drafty and cold inside. This machine will maintain a nice, pleasant, warm and toasty temperature so that it ensures that your dough will proof. So here's my dough, and look, I'm going to cut out my donuts with these little circle cookie cutters. I've got a baking tray here lined with some parchment squares. Okay. So after I was done preparing this dough, I checked my voice messages, and there was a voice message from my mother-in-law who sent me Aunt Meal's recipe. So stinking great. And her recipe is almost exactly the same as this one. The only difference was in Aunt Meal's recipe, it calls for using both water and milk mixed together. Also, instead of butter, it calls for shortening. I'm going to roll these out to about 1/3 of an inch in thickness. This process will degas and remove much of the CO2 that was in there when it started. Never fails. I'm wearing a dark color again when I am making something with flour. So the recipe calls for using a 2.5 inch to 3 inch cutter. This one's a little bit bigger than 3 inches, but it's a little bit more proportionate to this donut hole, don't you think? Yeah. I'm gonna take the donut hole out and let those rise as well. Transfer them to a parchment-lined baking pan, and we're gonna let these rise for about 30 to 40 minutes or until they're nice and poofy. Alrighty, my lovelies, my donuts have been proofing, and now I am prepping my air fryer with a little bit of oil. Just oil the bottom so that the donuts don't stick. I'm gonna preheat the air fryer to 350 degrees. Now we're gonna add our donuts to our basket. There they are. Into the air fryer for 3 minutes. Alrighty. In the air fryer, we do not need to flip this at all. We're just gonna let them bake, and then we'll take them out and let them cool on a rack until they're warm before we glaze them. Ooh, there we are. Okay, let's see how these turned out. Oh my gosh, they look like bagels. Look, they're pretty stinking cute. And we're gonna let these cool down before we glaze them. Now we are going to do the traditional donut cooking, and that's with hot oil. Okay, we're at temp, and we're gonna just slide our donuts right into the oil. Then we can just take the parchment out like that. Isn't that great? So handy. So my oil's at 365, and that is good. And once these get nice and golden on one side, we'll give them a flip. These are looking beautiful. If you don't have a thermometer, you can test with a donut hole. When it starts to bubble and fizz around it and it floats to the surface, you know that your oil is hot enough to fry. You can use 2 chopsticks to flip these over. Gorgeous. This one's a little light. We'll let that one sit a little longer. This one, yeah, baby. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. You're not quite ready. You can get flipped one more time. These ones are puffing up a lot more than the air fryer version. Makes sense. The hot oil gives them that little, you know, that was a highly technical term there, right? Oh, these are so beautiful. And then we're going to glaze them. Take half a stick of melted butter, add 2 cups of powdered sugar, and about 3 tablespoons of either milk or heavy cream. Mix that all together. Then take your warm donuts, you don't want them to be hot, drop them in, dunk them around, swish them, get both sides, and then use a fork underneath and tap all the excess glaze off. Let them dry for a little bit so they kind of crust up. Alrighty, my lovelies, I am finally back with my finished glazed donuts, and they look marvelous. Here are the air fried ones right here. They look a bit like shiny bagels. And here is that same recipe, but deep fried. Yeah, look a lot more like donuts. Now we can wait for the glaze to dry and set up so it's a little bit more crackly, but I cannot wait to taste these. So I'm gonna go ahead and tuck in. I'm gonna take this one right here. That's what the donut looks like inside. Light and airy. Itadakimasu. It's very fluffy, it's enriched, but it's not like a donut. The glaze is lovely. I love the kind of buttery vanilla sweetness of the glaze on the outside. The donut is very squishy and soft, and the texture is pillowy and enriched and quite lovely. But it's a little bit more like milk bread, maybe a little bit chewier in texture. It doesn't scream donut to me, and I think it's because it's not deep fried. When you deep fry it, you get that really great fried flavor from the oil. And it gives it a certain kind of toastedness to it as well. Now, since I have these donuts right here, there's no need for me to describe a fried donut from memory because I have one right here. Let's rip that one in half. Look at that inside. Let's give that a taste. Here we go. That is the quintessential yeasted donut. You really need that oil flavor that comes from deep frying the dough in oil to make it a donut, in my opinion. So good. Look at the texture of that. Alrighty, my lovely. So yes, indeed, you can make donuts in an air fryer. Are they going to taste like the traditional yeasted donuts that are fried in oil? No, they are not, in my opinion. You're just really missing that flavor that comes with that process, being enrobed and cooked in oil. And you can't simulate that flavor in an air fryer. Thanks so much for watching, and big thanks to Native for sponsoring this video. 3 plastic-free deodorants normally cost $39, but if you click the link down below, you can receive them for $29, and that's 25% off. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed that one. I hope you learned something. Please share this video with your friends. Follow me on social media, like this video, subscribe, and I shall see you in the next one. Toodaloo, take care, bye! Ooh.